Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and this is my weekly podcast show that airs live on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. It also is going out on the Lilydale Radio Blog Talk Radio site, and that's a listen only feature. So you can go to blogtalkradio.com/Lilydale Radio and join me there. Or if you like to see and hear me and my special guests, then join me on Facebook at Willa White Medium. Every week, I try to feature a different spiritual topic relating to spiritualism, mediumship, healing, faith, family, and more. And I am delighted to have as my special guest today, Colin Bates. Hi, Colin.
Hi there.
And Colin is coming to us from the United Kingdom. He is a spiritual medium in the United Kingdom and also a minister and a tutor at the Arthur Findlay College, which is a college that supports mediumship and the understanding of spiritualism across the pond. And so I love that we're able to connect with people all over the world, and we're so grateful that Colin can join us today. Also, I want to just mention that Colin is featured on the Netflix documentary Surviving Death. And so he had his own little role on that more recent Netflix documentary. So on today's Wednesdays with Willa podcast, our topic is healing grief through mediumship. And this will be a spiritual conversation for me and Colin that you guys get to enjoy as well. And stay tuned toward the end of the show. I do have a special surprise for you guys. So keep watching until the end. All right, so Colin, let's talk about healing grief through mediumship, because as mediums, that is certainly an aspect of what we do. It's a very important role that we play in people's lives, connecting them with their loved ones. And I guess I always view that as very much a sacred, reverential connection, but it can also be very joyful to reconnect people and help them know that their loved ones never die. So let's talk about that today.
Yes, isn't it wonderful? And thank you so much. It's lovely to be with you and really just to share this time together. There is no time, there is no distance that keeps any of us away from each other anymore. And that is one of the greatest gifts that we have, is this ability to connect wherever we are within the world on local reality, which means time and distance doesn't exist, and that we are all interconnected within the same moment of time and space. And so really, when we look at the spirit world, it's exactly the same. You see, love and like life is eternal. And so when we live within the physical life, however long or short that journey is, it is but one step to a greater reality. And really, that's how I see mediumship. It is a step to the realization that we do continue, that life is eternal. And you know, where the heart is concerned and love and relationships are concerned, we have this great need, you see, to know that those that we love are still very much a part of you and I, and of our journey within the physical life. So although we cannot be together physically, in the sense of the spirit, we are still very much a part of each other. And that really is the cornerstone of communication, for it is created through the power of love, the power of compassion, and the two together, you see, is the power to heal. And I always see the role of mediumship as the mediator between heaven and earth. We bring the two together within that sacred moment, because for me, all life is sacred. So the communion between the two worlds is, for me, it is of the heart, it is of the soul, but it is of the creative force.
Yes.
It comes into being, you see, through an act of will. We will it, you know, and I think what people don't often realize is that we are the doorway to the experience. It is a soul experience, and that each one of us is already connected to the spirit world, because that's who we are. Although we are within this physical being, because it is the physical life in which we live, that divine spark of you and I, the eternal you and I, is already of the spirit, because it's where we come from. And
Yes.
so this is the journey of the physical life, you know, I believe, is to experience life. And so in the spirit world, you see, it's not quite the same, because it doesn't have the physicality of life, life's experiences. And so we move and we live in the physical life to experience. And you know, I would even go further than that and say, you know, the place we're born, the family we're born into, the friendships we make, the people we meet, all have an impact upon us and upon our life and upon our journey. And this is where, you know, healing is so strong for me, because when we make those connections, when we exist, when we love, you know, it is forever. But that moment of parting is something that is really, it is life-changing to so many, and especially for those who, you know, lose children, loved ones. You know, the sense of loss leaves us with this hole inside of us, where we are searching to find our answers, to know that they are loved, to know that they still exist, to know that we are still very much a part of each other, is really where mediumship comes into its own, because communication itself proves the continuation of life. But I believe also that it goes beyond that. It goes into family, it goes into friendship, it goes into relationship, to partnership. It touches every aspect of life, because it is life itself. And so when we communicate with the spirit world, I think what people don't always realize is that it's actually something that's very natural, that is something that is created through the heart and through the soul. And when we speak of the creative force, you see, we know that there are many pathways, there are many faces to the power itself, to God's love. And each one leads us to the great mystery of all life, the power of all life. And you see, the spirit world is a facet of the creative force. When you seek God's love, however you choose to perceive it, you will find the spirit world, because it's one and the same. It exists in that same moment of perception and of being. And as we move through times of grief and loss, for me, it brings a strength, it brings a knowing, and it also brings a healing. And really, you know, learning to live with grief is really what we create, I believe, because you learn to surround it with love and to place it in the heart in a way that you carry it with you, because I don't believe you ever forget, because you can't. It's a part of life, you see, and those that we love and those that are a part of us continue to stay a part of us. And what for me is most important is that in remembering, in speaking, we continue to live, we continue to love, and then we wrap that love in just in our own hearts, and then we keep it there, and we move through life, and it becomes a part of you and I, and we have to live, we have to continue, because that is the journey of life. But in the touch of the spirit, we are reminded that we are loved. We are reminded that we still exist, and that we are still very much a part of each other. And for me, really, a lot of communication often touches many aspects of life. Yes. And, you know, sometimes it can be, I love you. I've always loved you, and I am here. It can be, I'm sorry. It can be, I never said goodbye. It could be, I couldn't speak to you. And so the healing part is really one of the strongest aspects of mediumship itself. In its purest sense, it is the reunion of two worlds. It is reminding us that we still exist. And sometimes I really do feel that we forget that the spirit world is the living essence as real as you and I, with wishes, with hopes, with dreams, you know, and that this amazing moment that is created is a miracle. It's the miracle of creative love. But the magic, we are the magic that creates the miracle. We bring it into being, you see, through the power of will. And often when I speak to people who've recently lost someone, when they're so immersed, when we are so immersed, because we all are the same, in that emotion, it's not always easy for us to be aware of the spirit because we're so immersed within the emotional aspect of loss. And that when we are reminded of the connection, when we move into more of the quietness, we can then start to become more aware of the spirit. Because you see, the spirit has no physical voice. It can't. It exists in its own vibration. So when we leave this world, what happens is a change of energy. The physical body, which is the overcoat and the home of the spirit, is discarded. But the spirit itself and the soul energy of all life and experiences moves forward at a higher vibration. It changes, you see. And so when we communicate, it is the energy that changes. So in my physical life, I'm not aware at all of the spirit because the physical mind dominates everything. But when you move into the love and you move into the heart, all of a sudden you become aware on another level. You begin to experience on another level. And that's really how communication is created, through that awareness that we have of the other world. I mean, the other world is always there, but we are not. And so I always say that to my students. I say, you know, I've never known a time when the spirit world has not been there when I've been working, but I've known of many times when I have not. When in my own awareness, you see, I've not fully been able to become aware. And really it's created through love, through harmony, and also from the joy that we create. And so when we experience the spirit, as they don't have a physical voice, you see, they use all the senses in order to communicate. So it's not with the physical senses that we become aware. It's with the senses of the clairsentience, the feeling, the hearing, the knowing. And the clair knowing is one of the strongest gifts of this age. You know, and often in life, you know, we're doing something and all of a sudden, you know, you're just aware of something. You're aware that someone is there. You're aware that there is a presence that is there with you. And you see, as soon as we say, what's that? It's gone, because the physical mind has tried to analyze, and then it's lost its moment. But as soon as we just embrace with the heart, all of a sudden we begin to become aware. And you know, the spirit, as I said, has no physical voice. So they speak to us in memory. They communicate through emotion. So often when we're doing something and perhaps we're not fully focused in this world, you know, when you're doing something that's occupying you, but not here. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden we can have a spontaneous experience of the spirit. So somebody that we love, and then they come into our mind and it's their way of saying, I remember, I'm still here. I'm still with you. Or you're drawn to your photographs. And then as you're drawn to the photographs, all of a sudden this feeling comes to you and it's saying, I'm here and I'm there and I'm still here and I'm still with you. And really it's as natural as that. as it comes into being for us. And I think sometimes we also, when we send our thoughts, the Spirit hears us. When we consider the power of prayer, the universe hears us, the creative force, for prayer is a part of the creative force itself. And we are lifted, and then we know that the power has heard us. And one thing for me which is so important is that wherever we are, there exists the power of God, that the creative force is a part of everything. And when we move to the Spirit, in whatever circumstances we may move, however we pass, the power is there, and all are loved, and no one is lost, for you cannot be lost, for you cannot be where the power is not. And I think sometimes people become a little bit confused with that one. And you know, when we're going through that sense of grief, the greatest question can often be, where are you? Are you still here? Are you still with me? And, you know, so many people have these strangest ideas that if you think of somebody who has passed, that you're holding on to them. I mean, can you imagine trying to hold on to someone? It's not possible. And that, you know, that when we focus upon the Spirit and we send love to the Spirit, and we create this wonderful communication, people don't always realize that the spirit world is with you, not me. And that when I communicate with the Spirit, it is through, you know, the energy that we create together, and that we build this wonderful bridge of light between the two worlds. And then we become aware, you see, but we become aware through your love, through your connection, through the creating of this wonderful moment. And that as we move forward into the spirit world, all are loved, and that no one passes alone, that there is always someone there within the Spirit to welcome us home, because it is home. It's from whence we come. It's the power from whence we return, you see. And, you know, we speak of the tears of passing within the physical life, but we also speak of the tears of joy within the spirit, for it's the welcome home. It's the coming back to the source of all life. And, you know, just because we have lived, we don't sit on a cloud and play a harp, although wouldn't that be rather marvelous?
That's what I say to
just
people.
To sit on the cloud. Do you? Isn't that wonderful?
I say,
just to sit on the cloud.
How boring. How boring would that be? Just go sit on a cloud with a harp. It would be horrible.
Exactly. I may enjoy it for a little while, I think, just as a novelty, just to think about things and life. But actually, you know, the world of light and mind that we call spirit, you know, we continue to exist. We continue to unfold. We continue this extraordinary journey within the spirit, but it's still a part of the physical world, although separate. So the love that we have for each other is still going to be there. And that is something that we always need to remember, for you cannot be where that love is not. And that the subtleties of communication itself, I think sometimes we dismiss things and we say, no, that's my imagination. But you see, imagination is a tool of the spirit. The ability to create and to visualize with the power of the mind is one of the ways that clairvoyance is created, which is clear seeing, the ability to see the spirit. And it's through the heart and the knowing that we then understand what the image is telling us. So as it comes together within that moment, you see, it's the spirit world saying, well, I'm still here. You haven't lost me. I'm still here. And we build a new relationship, because it isn't the same as the physical sense. But that also is about time. You know, you have to give yourself time to be, time to grieve, and time to, you know, to heal within that sense. And for me, that process is never an easy one or a quick one. But once we know that we are loved, and once we know, and really many people start their journey through loss to seek to know and to find that their loved ones still are very much a part of this world. It can be a catalyst that awakens people to the quest to find the spirit. And you know what I have found so wonderful is that when you just take a moment and we stand still, you realize that you already know the answer, that it's already there, because you couldn't be closer to it, because it's the power of everything. It's the power of who we are. So communication in its purity is love itself. And what we then have to do is then just in the kindness, in the quietness, is to just be aware of the answer that comes to us. And I believe that's what mediumship is. It points the way. It points the way to the union of the two worlds. Because you see, we have a need within us as human beings to know, and to know that that love exists and that it is so real. When you come to see me and I do a reading, then you have a need. And that need has already been sent to the power, you see, because you've already voiced through your own heart your need. The power of the soul, you see, the ancient power of the soul is the power to know. Therefore, every need is already known. And you notice I use the word need, not want.
Yes.
Because you may have many wants, yes, but are your wants your needs? Mm-hmm. And the two, if very rarely, if ever, are the same. But the need is known within the power, just as it's known within the spirit world. And so when somebody comes to see us and they've sent their thoughts, then the need is known. And often, you see, that is when communication really brings its knowledge and its intelligence to answer that need. And in this age, the need has changed so dramatically over the years. And I often believe that mediumship has changed and will continue to change as time unfolds, and that mediumship has now seems to have taken on more the role of the oracle, where we're expected to know everything and anything and anything and anything. Mm-hmm. And that the questions that come, you know, come more and more, and the demand comes more and more. And you see, you can't demand of the power. You know, you can ask.
It's a gentle request. It's a gentle request and not a demand. The forcefulness of the demand energy actually stops it. Because that's something the ego or physical, logical mind is pushing. Yes.
Yes, I do believe that. And that's why, you know, when everyone comes to see me, I will say, now what I want you to do is just to relax. Just to move into the quietness of the heart. The power, the energy, the presence of the spirit already knows you're here, because you've already sent your wishes and your thoughts. Let's just see how we create. Let's just see who is here, who wants to say hello to you. And that way, you see, it's a very natural unfolding process. And within ourselves, you see, it's the clairsentience, it's the feeling and the knowing which takes us into the awareness of being. And then we embrace that awareness, but not with the mind. We embrace it with the heart, you see, and with the feeling. And so the mind actually becomes the great observer. You know, like within meditation, we observe the unfolding process. Mm-hmm. You know, we speak to the presence of the power in prayer, and the power answers us within meditation. We experience the divine within the meditation. When we pray, we join and we seek. In meditation, we unfold and we experience, you see. So we create it within the quietness. And what I find so fascinating, you see, is that no two people will ever experience it the same. So mediumship itself is universal, but it's also unique. So no two people will experience it in exactly the same way. And so your own individual communication is different to another person's individual communication. So what we teach is how to become more aware of the presence of the spirit and how to embrace the presence of the spirit, so that you begin to recognize the qualities and the presence and the reality and the life, you see, that is, that is the spirit. Because if we look at this in the sense of the physical world, there is such a need within those that have lost to know that those that they have loved are still a part of them and that they still exist. And imagine that in the spirit world. So you have this coming together, but you have this coming together of emotion. And so we have to create a harmony so that emotion can be understood. And so when I'm working as a medium, and it's a duality here. When I'm working as a medium, it is the compassion that we have for the person who is seeking to find those answers and is seeking to embrace the knowledge of their loved ones. But then also the compassion of embracing the spirit world. Because you see, the spirit world also has to learn how to communicate.
Yes, that's a very good point, that they have their own ways of learning and best ways of communicating for them too. And you almost have to match up communication style to some extent.
Yes, totally. So if you've got somebody who is very quiet, then you also have to find that commonality between you and the spirit. You have to be able to build that bridge of harmony so that you are then able to embrace that, and they are then able to speak and to bring their words and to bring their evidence and knowledge and compassion and, and memories. And you see, that's going to be different again for every single person, because no two people are the same. And this is why really, mediumship is so extraordinary, because it is so universal. If I had somebody's mother who was of a different culture and of a different language, I would actually hear her in my language, but I would know that she was of another culture. Isn't it extraordinary how that works?
It is. And that's happened before to me, where I have known that, because they're talking funny and then, in a different language, and then all of a sudden they'll get translated through the emotion. Yes.
So language actually has no form. And emotion can speak to us. And this, you see, is where the clair-knowing, the claircognizance, as we call it, is really one of the strongest gifts of this age, because it doesn't have any origin, but it can have every origin. Like you can see, feel, hear, and know, and it combines to an absolute knowledge. And so this is where, you have to start trusting a little bit what you're doing, and not questioning. So many times people will say to me, well, I haven't really understood that because you didn't give the passcode. Well, maybe that passcode is the last thing on the spirit's mind. If I'm someone who loves you desperately, the last thing I'm going to say to you is, Willa, it's Colin Bates. I'm going to say, my darling, it's me, aren't I? And so, you know, people don't quite realize, you see, that it's not necessarily within the mind of the spirit to give you the facts, the figures, and this wonderful list of information, because you've got that excitement, you've got that expectation, you've got that emotion. Maybe all that's there within their mind at that one moment is, I love you, Mama. I'm still here. And so really, you see, the expectation of people is quite high. You know, I need to know the name, I need to know the address, I need to know the passcode. Well, that may be there, you know, but what is most important is this union of knowing, of knowledge, that I'm still here. And as I said, you know, when we communicate from the spirit world, you know, what is so important is that emotion, because that emotion can give you a life story. You know, I'm sorry, I never said goodbye. I love you. Unfinished business, unspoken words. And you know, really a lot of people, when they come to see us, they just need to have that confirmation that everything is okay. And then they never come and see us again. And that's beautiful, because then we've done our job.
Yes.
We've connected in that way. But also as well, it's knowing, and for me this is such intrinsically a part of the whole faith, because I do so believe in it, is that when we have touched in the sense of the spirit, we will know each other eternally, because we have connected on that level. And I remember once, many years ago, a lady coming to see me, and she sobbed, and she said, I loved my father desperately, and it's been 50 years since he passed. When I die, will he still recognize me? And I couldn't breathe for a second. I really couldn't breathe for a second. And I said, my darling, of course he will, because you will go beyond the physicality of life. And that spark, which is you, and that spark, which is him, is ever young. And you will know each other instantly because of love. And that really is so important to remember, that it is beyond the physical appearance of life. It is love eternal. And where love eternal exists, there will always be this recognition, because you will know each other. You will know each other from here. And that is something that is eternally a part of you and I. And for me, it brings the strength. It brings the strength, and it brings the knowledge. And it can start us upon this pathway, this quest, to really seek to know that those that we love are still there. But it can also start the healing process. You know, when we talk of someone, it's a great healing process. You know, I've never understood people who say, well, you mustn't speak about them anymore. It's the worst thing you can ever do, because the speaking is the remembering. It's keeping that moment of memory of life. And, you know, so often we speak of the passing, but, you know, remember, the passing is but one moment of a greater story. There is so much more than that one moment.
Yes.
There is life, you know, in all of its facets, in all of its wonderful memories. And that's what I say to people sometimes, you know, that's not everything. That moment is not everything. Go beyond it and remember the life, you know, remember the moments. You know, when we move into the spirit world, I am I and you are you. You know, we don't become an angel with wings, although that would be quite lovely. You know, if Granny was grumpy in life, then Granny's going to be grumpy in the spirit world. Isn't that marvelous? Because she's, no, really.
Well,
because
if
I said your
evolve.
grandmother's here, and she said, yes. And, you know, if I was to say, well, your grandma's here and she's so sweet and lovely, and You know, it's like my mother, I adored my mother, but you know, if somebody said, you know, she's this angel, you know, I'd say, oh really? You know, if they said she's chasing me with a frying pan, I'd say, hi mama, I love you. And you know, because I adored my mother. But you know, we have to look at life and how life is. You know, when you're looking after someone, and you know, maybe they're terminally ill or they're coming to the end of their life, whatever age they are, it's the compassion that we have that takes us beyond ourselves, that enables us to love them and to look after them and to be the best that we can for them. And so that love that we have is a healing. And so it heals the spirit. And I believe it surrounds the soul on its next stage of its journey, and that a part of us goes with them. And that is such a beautiful thing, to be able to do that, to give that love, to be a part of that extraordinary journey that is life never ending. And this is why healing itself is compassion, it's love, and it's the understanding of another person's need. And we are able to fulfill that because as we know, energy is limitless, and you cannot limit the limitless power. And no one stays longer in this world than is their moment to leave. You cannot keep someone here as much as we would wish it. When that moment comes, we surround with our hearts, with our love. And even if we are not physically there at that moment, our love is. And the soul knows, as it moves forward on its next stage, that love is there. You know, one of the reasons for communication is sometimes I never said goodbye. I never had that time to tell you that I love you. Tell them in life. Always say what is in your heart. Always let someone know, you know, and even if they're not huggy people, grab them anyway, you know, because that is the joy of life, although we can't hug at the moment. There'll come a time, won't there, when we can once more. But, you know, some people, even to the point of passing, they wait. They wait until that moment of quietness when everyone is gone. You know, I had the privilege of nursing my father for 3 years before he passed. I nursed my mama before she passed, and I was with both of them when they passed. And the family had just gone, they'd all left. I just switched the lamps on and I turned around and I said, oh, Mama, I said, isn't it lovely? I said, it's all peaceful and all quiet. And then she chose that moment to leave. So some people need that quietness, you see, in order to leave this world, because their love for you is so strong that if you are all there, it makes it more difficult. And so I always, whenever I hear that, it always makes me smile, because I think, oh, they waited, you know. And it's the same where people, you know, people choose to wait until someone is there, you know. So it can be many situations that is there. And really that's where the healing starts, where it begins to unfold. And I also believe, you see, that we have to realize that as natural sensitives, that grieving process is important to all of us, you know, even with our knowledge. And people often say, you know, you're so lucky because, you know, well, even with all the knowledge in the world, you still have that process within you where you need to heal, where you need time, and you need
would you
yes.
say that it's also part of, you know, you don't just miss that person, you miss the habit of them.
Yes,
You know,
totally.
you miss the relationship with them on that level.
Yes, absolutely. and that really is where we feel it, you know, within ourselves. And you know, when people come to see me and they say, I'm not aware of them anymore, and then when I'm speaking to them, I say, well, have you thought that they've never left you, and that the reason you're saying you can't feel them is that you don't know that they haven't left, and that they're still there, that they're still in essence a part of each other, and that you're so used to that that you can't quite embrace that within yourself, because they are still there. And you know, what we teach people to do often is to find that place of peace where forever love dwells within, to find that inner temple, that inner place of peace where healing can begin, but where also is the meeting point of the spirit, where we can say those words we didn't have the opportunity to say, where we can also allow the spirit to come and the spirit to say the words that they never had the opportunity to say. And that really, as that moment comes together, that's really for me where the healing is. And it's not forgetting, because I don't believe we ever do. It's surrounding it with love and placing it in a special place within the heart. And we live with it side by side, and we carry it with us. And then we still embrace the sunny day. We still dance in the joy of our own spirit eventually. But it just needs time. And that is something that really is unique and individual to each one of us. And you know, communication itself is ancient, but we carry that with us into a modern world. And the compassion and the love and the care that we have for each other should be universal. And that's where this wonderful term, non-local reality, comes into its fullest, because we know by the power of love and compassion, we can be with each other. Well, I mean, we're proving it now, aren't we? In this extraordinary moment of time where we are able to come together, you know, and you know, there's a wonderful saying, no time nor space can e'er keep those I love away from me. And that we are eternally intertwined and a part of each other. And, you know, in the experiences of my life, even of the people that come into your life at certain points within your life, it's not by chance. I believe that there is a greater relationship, a greater family of the spirit that is far beyond you and I. And one day, you know, as we move to that moment of the far and distant shore and we are embraced by the light, our eyes become open, the pain is no longer there, and we see everybody in front of us, this sea of faces of all those that have been a part of our life and of our journey. And what is so incredible is that even those who we didn't perhaps physically fully know, and yet have walked this pathway with us. You know, the angels of the spirit exist, you know, and there are angels that walk amongst us in this physical world. Some of them have dirty faces, but that walk amongst us, they do. And they bring such a blessing with them. And they surround us with this wonderful sense of having known someone who's touched our life and have left their goodness with us. And just as we move into this time of spiritual knowledge and even revelation of healing for the world, because my goodness, have we never been more closely interconnected by what is happening within the world? And that touches everyone. You know, it is beyond everything, beyond colour, beyond class, beyond creed, because it's life. and it's a part of life and the journey of life. And you know, what happens within one happens within all. So the goodness of the strength of one can lift the strength of another in need. And that is what I've always loved so much about the Spirit, because it's not about death, it's about life, because there is no death.
That's right.
And real mediumship is life. It's what is created within life itself. And that is so extraordinary, really. It is life itself. And I always say to people, you know, you've got to be kind to yourself. You've got to learn really just not to place yourself under this great pressure, because then it doesn't happen at all. What happens is that the connection has gone into this moment. And when we focus upon the peace and the love that we create, communication is always there, really. But when we are so immersed within the grief, it's not always easy to see that or to create that. So I will always work within the healing first, and say, you know, let us just work together to find that harmony and the peace and the strength to rebuild you. And then in those moments of quietness, you will find that your loved one is still with you, that they have never left, that they are still a part of my journey, your journey, and all of our journey. And really, it's important within life as it is within the spirit. So, you know, that eternal healing power is also within the spirit as well as within the physical life. But one thing that I believe absolutely is that at that moment, within the last breath of this world, we are welcomed within the arms of the Creator itself, that no one is lost, that no one is forgotten, and that all are loved. And that with it, as we close our eyes within this life, we immediately, in the breath of life itself, we open our eyes to the reality of life itself, the eternal journey. And that's a beautiful thought, and it fills us with that feeling of just knowing that we are loved. And the subtleties of communication itself, you see. As I said earlier, the spirit, you see, has no physical voice. It can't. It doesn't exist in the same way. So when we are, you see, within the quiet, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, our own awareness is touched by another awareness. And that sense of knowing then comes into being through the feeling. And then you embrace it with your heart, and then speak from the heart and just say, I can feel your presence, my darling. I know that you're there. I know that you're still with me. And then we also can have signs, you see. You know, I had the most amazing experience yesterday. I lost my godmother. My godmother returned home about a year ago in October. And I adored my godmother. Well, the relationship was just, she was one of these amazing people of life. And I was thinking of her yesterday, as I often do. And I was just walking, and I was just taking the dog for a walk, our beloved Jackson. And a lady came up to me with another dog, and she turned around to the dog and she said, "Oh, Momo, behave." And that was the name of my godmother. and her name was Maureen, but I always called her Momo. I don't know why, just Momo, always double-barreled it. And never heard anyone ever called that before. And it was like my sign. And it was as if to say to me that she'd heard me and she'd known that I was thinking of her and that I was sending my love to her. And, you know, anybody could look at that and say, well, I don't quite get that. But, you know, there are signs that move us towards things. You know, you can be drawn to a photograph and it's actually the spirit that's drawing you to say, I'm here, I'm still there and with you. And I tell you what, I was thrilled. I got, just for a minute, I had to draw breath. And I said, thank you, darling, because I've been thinking so much of her lately. It doesn't matter who we are, it doesn't matter, you know, our belief, it doesn't matter what we do. We are all the same because we all love. We all go through different stages of love, of life, even of regret, you know, and we can all still put that into perspective. We can all still communicate that. We can all still forgive, you know, because I always think of the journey of the spirit actually as one of transformation. It's transformation of self, of our own journey. And sometimes that's about learning to love. Sometimes that's about learning to forgive. And sometimes it's about learning how to dance in the joy of your own spirit and giving yourself permission to be free, to be yourself, you know, and that is one of the greatest gifts of the spirit. It is the realization of self. And it is really realizing that, you know, within us, there is this limitless quality. Do not limit the limitless power and potential of who you are. Embrace life, you know. And if you're having a day that's not such a good day, then don't punish yourself, you know. Nurture yourself and say, well, this may be today, but I'm going to do something that is going to be joyful, that's going to bring that whole sense into focus and into being. And if you have a day of tears, let those tears be one of healing, because not all tears are of sadness, you see. And sometimes you need to let that go. You need just to embrace that for a little time, to just say, it's okay. I am loved. I still love, and I am love. And that is one of the greatest gifts of the spirit. It is also a strength, you see. Call upon us when you need us, for we are always there. You know, the power of the angels is with all of us, you know. And sometimes we just have to just acknowledge that, because sometimes we're so immersed here mentally that we can't perceive that here in the heart. And sometimes we need then just to give ourselves a little time within that to be and to celebrate and to celebrate life. So if a thought comes through the mind, a memory comes, don't dismiss it as coincidence, because really it's the spirit saying, I'm still here and I'm still with you. And if you feel or know a presence, then just embrace that and say, thank you. I know you're there. Try not to pull it apart and analyze it with the mind, because then it will be gone, you know. And, you know, sometimes in that moment between waking and sleeping, we can hear the voice, we can hear the words of the spirit, we can feel the presence. And it's the spirit coming to say, good night, I love you. So just acknowledge it within the heart and just say, yes, I know you're still here. I know that you're still with me. Let us grow stronger together within that knowledge, because that's how communication is really created. It's through love, you see. Love is the whole power of the universe. Love and compassion. And really, that is the most wonderful gift that we have.
Beautifully
How is
stated.
that? How are we?
We are
I
doing
get lost,
well.
you see. I start talking.
And I just let you roll because it's just so beautiful. And I can feel that a lot of people in your words, hearing them and hearing your voice, are transcending certain issues within themselves that have been presented in their life and in their grief. And so it's very healing for people to see how there's this realm of beautiful possibility that mediumship brings to us. And I really appreciate what you've been sharing today. And I agree with every word you have said, because that's been my experience as a medium as well, and helping people all these years, and you can just feel how when you've been doing this work, as long as we have been doing this work, you just start to become steeped in it. It's almost like we've been brewed in spiritual tea, and you can feel the essence of spirit and the transcendent force that words bring and that vibration of love brings. So you've done such a beautiful job, Colin. I really appreciate it very much. And I want to share with people that
well, I've been honored.
Yeah, it's such a blessing that you've been here. I want to mention to people that, especially because this is such a transitional time for many people, winter here in Lilydale, we've just had a few days of sunshine, and it has felt like such a blessing to reach that next space of light. And I told you earlier on in the show that I have a little surprise for you. For people who are subscribed on my website, I'm going to be sending out within the next week a link to a meditation called Reaching the Next Space of Light. So it'll just be a free meditation for you to listen to if you are in that grieving state, or maybe you're needing to transition something within your life, or to let go and just be patient for that next space of light. Sometimes we're so feel like it's a bunch of cloudy skies over us and that we'll never see the sun again. And we need to know that there is always going to be hope, and there's always a place to reach that light within, to reach the divine light, and to resonate with it with intention and with patience. Those are two key ingredients, as well as love, especially when we're wanting to work through something in our lives, or work through grief, and work in that light of mediumship. I also want to mention that next week, my special guest on my show is Barbara Sanson. She is the former chairperson of the Healing Temple here in Lilydale, and also a registered medium. We are going to be talking about you and your reality. So when Colin earlier was mentioning about all of these changes and the revelations that have come from these changes, and Barbara and I chatted about this particular show we're doing next week on Wednesdays with Willa. It was about the changes that this year have brought about, and the revelations and the awakenings in our perceptions. And so I think it'll be a wonderful journey from this show to the next show because of that. I encourage you to reach out to Colin's website, which is mediumcolinbates.com. I'll also link that in the show podcast info, so you'll have that. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe to my website, and you'll receive emails from me every now and then. I don't spam people, but just to update you about certain events I'm having, or to offer an inspiration, or in this case, to offer you a meditation. All right, so thank you so much for being here today, Colin. It's just been so beautiful to share this time with you, and you are wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, and it's been wonderful just to have a chat. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I will say thank you so much, and we'll see you next week on Wednesdays with Willa. Bye-bye.